I'm really thrilled to bring in my next guest, Joel Kotkin. He's one of the smartest big trend thinkers in the U.S. He's written a number of books, including The Coming of Neo-Feudalism, which may sound negative, but he's also got, I think, maybe some positive news as well. Joel, welcome to the program, and I want to talk about this article you have written for the Spectator USA that suggests conservatives may be able to take advantage of the current moment in democracy to turn the tide of politics. I'm going to read a little bit here. You write that in coming years, progressives will have to work overtime against a changing demographic and economic balance of power. The GOP, the Republicans by contrast, are well positioned to capitalize on epoch-shaping changes. Sounds pretty big, Joel. Talk us through it.
Well, look, basically what's happened is over the last 15, 20 years, particularly in the last 2 or 3, those parts of the country that are generally conservative, not all, but most, have done progressively well. And since around, 2019, maybe a little earlier, the areas that are predominantly Democratic, which tend to be urban, Northeast, West Coast, have actually been in a bit of a demographic decline. We already can see that the red states are every census gaining 3, 4, 5, 6 seats, depending on how you count it. And there's also what you might want to call the demonstration effect, which is people, let's just say I'm Gavin Newsom and I'm running for president. Meanwhile, California is unaffordable, losing population. How you can screw up California is just an amazing accomplishment, I must say. It's, by every stretch of imagination, probably the most blessed piece of real estate in the world. And yet, if you have massive homelessness, incredible inequality, people can't afford to buy a house. I think that it's a hard case to make. If I'm Ron DeSantis and I'm debating Gavin Newsom, I think that Ron DeSantis has the advantage. Now, the Republicans are completely and totally capable of screwing it up. I wouldn't be shocked. And the reason is that there are other issues, for instance, abortion, where if the Republicans go too far to the right on that, they're going to lose a lot of people who, for economic reasons, would actually vote for them.
Indeed, but you do write also in this piece, you say next year's election could prove to be an inflection point, and you say it's a domestic version of Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations. Now, all of us who were, in politics 20 years ago remember that book very well, and you say the election may turn into a referendum on whether to promote the interests of cities and blue states or those of suburbs and regions experiencing dynamic growth. You mentioned before Florida and California, but is this also, I guess, a rebuke to the danger of that neo-feudalism that you've written about elsewhere, this idea that we could all sort of wind up being, indentured servants essentially to big corporations locked into these kind of urban environments?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I think people move. You don't move to Dallas for the weather. You don't move to Dallas for the topography, and you probably don't move particularly for the culture. Not to say anything bad about Dallas, but it's not LA, it's not San Francisco, it's not Seattle, it's certainly not New York City. So why are people moving? They're moving because they don't want to be serfs. And the one great thing that we in America have, and I think you can say the same about Australia and Canada, is that these are countries with lots of room. And as long as we allow people to react and to bring their businesses and themselves to places that fit better for their own lives, I think the Republicans are very well served. My sense of it is that the Biden presidency in the second term will be a desperate attempt to save the blue states from the consequences of their own stupidity.
So Joel, I was just going to say, this sounds like this big shift away from the big established urban Democrat areas to more local areas. Is this part of also a bigger shift and a reaction against globalism that we've seen in the last couple of years, and the way that just turns everybody into anonymous cogs and even whole nations into just cogs in a global economy?
Yeah, well, one of the things I've been working on is the idea that we are moving more towards an embrace of localism. I mean, fundamentally, and this is why I'm not a conservative or a free market conservative in the pure sense. I don't think people want their lives controlled by big corporations like Apple and Google or the Wall Street banks, and they don't want to be controlled by the state. Localism is an attempt to give us the chance for a third option, something that does not require that we genuflect either to the woke capitalists or the woke bureaucrats. And so I think the key issue, I think, is going to be, can we create this third alternative? It'll be very interesting to see.
And Joel, I mean, you talk about abortion there as being one of those issues that the right and the conservatives could wind up alienating a lot of voters on. But couldn't the same thing be said about Democrats if they go too hard on a push for climate, net zero, getting everybody out of their petrol or gasoline cars, forcing them into electric vehicles? And of course, we saw the whole fight over gas cooktops just a few weeks ago in the United States. Surely that sort of, Democrat religion, for lack of a better term, is going to turn off a lot of voters who would be in the center. And of course, the center needs to be where you need to be, right?
Well, no, there's no question about it. I mean, the Democrats have a lot more than just the climate stuff to worry about. You've got defund the police. You've got liberal or progressive DAs who seem to be unwilling to be very aggressive about law enforcement. You've got the whole gender fluidity issue. These are all things where I think the Democrats have been pushing against where the public is. The only question is, will the Republicans manage to find things to alienate people enough so that they don't vote, or some of them vote Democratic? I mean, again, I think we cannot underestimate the profound stupidity of the Republican Party. I just think that would be a huge miscalculation.
Yeah, no, fair enough, Joel Kotkin. We started out this program talking about space aliens. Now we're talking about alienated voters. Thank you so much, Joel Kotkin. Really appreciate your time.